Let's talk about structures and arrays, the two kinds of variables that weren't covered in the last variable video. And that's because these two are a little bit different. Let's begin with structures. So if I go to the scene variables and add a variable, I can change it to a structure, and from here I can add a variable to that structure. So structures are kind of like folders for other variables. In the variable list, you can open and close them just like you would a folder. And just like in your computer's folder directory, when you're trying to find a variable, you first use the name of the parent variable and then the child variable to access that variable's information. And you can actually add a structure inside of a structure and make as many of these as you want to inside of each other. These are most useful for organization because you can do things like this, where you can keep your character stats away from the other variables in your game. So as a simple example, let's set up these stats and have them display in the game. I'll use this text object to show the variables in the game. So at the beginning of scene, we'll modify the text to equal, and when I first start typing character, it will show up in the autocomplete. And then when I select that, I'll be shown the options inside of that character variable. So speed, strength, vitality. So we'll start with speed, and we'll do the same thing again for strength and vitality. And then when I preview the game, you can see the variables I put in there earlier. And that's basically it, because structured variables are really easy to use. But now we move on to arrays. Back in the game scene, we'll go to the scene variables, and we'll get rid of these. So we'll turn this variable into an array. And when I add children to this array, instead of being able to write in the name of the variable, it automatically sets it to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, because arrays are meant to be used as dynamic lists, which makes them really handy for things like recording the things that are happening in the game, like in this Papa Is You example, where it's used to record your steps in the game and go backspaces when you undo a turn. Or, like what we're going to do in this video, you can use it to preload a path for an object to follow, like in the tower defense example game. And of course I'll link to both of those in the description as resources to help you learn how to use arrays. Now in this video, we're going to make this character follow a path down this road using arrays. So we're going to remove the children variables first, and then change this variable to target X, and make another one for target Y. And what we're going to do is record the position of these points for the character to follow. So first we'll set up the points, which is just a sprite object with its origin point changed to the center, and a variable called ID. Now we'll make a couple copies of this, and in that ID variable, we'll set them to 0, 1, 2, and 3. Because when we set up the array, it's going to start at 0, and then go to 1, 2, and 3. So now in the event sheet, we'll start by saving the positions of the variables in the array. So at the beginning of scene, we'll add a repeat event type. And for the number of times we're going to repeat, we're going to use the number of point objects in the game. So count, and we'll get scene instances count, and we'll type in point. So now this event will repeat 4 times. And then for the actions, we'll go to variables, array, and we'll use add variable array value. And we'll select target X. And since we're creating a variable, we need to select what it's going to be. In this case, it's going to be a number, but you could also make it a text or a Boolean variable. And the number that we want to add is the X position of the point object. Then we want to do the same thing again, but this time for the Y position. And we'll save it in the target Y array. And the last thing is the condition. So we want to check the ID variable of the point object and check to see if it's equal to the variable child count of target X. So the first time this event triggers, it's going to check the first one because the ID is 0, And then the second time it'll check the second one because its ID is 1, and so on, and so on. So now, if we preview the game with the debugger, we can check the game's scene variables and see that we've recorded all 4 different points. For target X, we have 4 different children, and for target Y, we have another 4. But we have the text object here so that I can show you the variables in real time in the game. So to show those variables in this text object, we need to modify the text object. And to do that, we'll need to use a local variable. So we'll add one to this event and call it step. And then we'll add another repeat event type. Now to begin with, we'll modify the text of the array font object to equal blank. And then we'll repeat this time for the variable child count of the array. We could use target X or target Y because they both have 4. Then we'll modify the text by adding step, the variable, plus dash X plus target X. And for arrays, in order to use them in an expression like we are here, you need to use square brackets. So target X is the parent variable of the array, and inside the brackets, you put in the number or index that you want to pick. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But in this case, we're going to use that step variable we added earlier. And now we'll add the Y position. And there we go. And then once we've modified that text, we want to change the step variable by adding 1 to it. And this is how step will go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 each time that this event repeats. And now before I preview the game, I need to add one more thing to this expression. And now if I preview the game, we can see our array variables right here. So this first variable to this point. And you can see that the other coordinates are for the other points. Now the last thing to do is to get the character moving. We have a button, and so we'll use that as the condition for the event. But also, the character has the tween behavior, so we can use the actions for tweening to move the character. So in the event, we'll check to see if the button is clicked, and if it is, we'll tween the character object's position. We'll set the identifier to move, and then we'll use target X, for which again you need to add your own square brackets, and inside the brackets we'll put 0. So 0 is the top number in the array list, and so we'll be using the first numbers in the list. And we'll do the same thing for the Y position. So now if I preview the game, if I press next, the tween action will move the character from where they were to the point using these coordinates, the X and the Y, because this is 0 in the list. But now to move to the next point, I would either need to change this number or change the array. So once a position is used up, I'm going to remove those positions from the list. So under variables, inside of arrays, we can remove a variable by index. So in the target X array, we'll remove the 0 index. And we'll do the same thing for Y. And so now, we're going to remove the top numbers from the array. So if I press next, the character moves, but also the entire list moves up. And now if I press next again, the character moves down, and we remove the variables, and again, and again. Now in Engine by default, all that you can do is remove a variable by index, or add variables to the end of the array, so the bottom of the list. If you want more options, there's the Array Tools extension. That extension gives you access to a bunch of tools, like this shuffle action that will let you randomly shuffle the children of an array. The extension also lets you sort, splice, reverse, insert, pop, shift, and do a whole bunch of other things with arrays. If you'd like to learn more about arrays, and watch a video about that tower defense game, then just click on this.